Hypothesis testing. Hypothesis testing about a population mean when the variance is known or unknown and n is greater than or equal to 30. So the appropriate test statistic for testing a claim about a population mean when the population variance is known or unknown and n is greater than or equal to 30 is the z-test. So z is equal to the sample mean minus mean over the standard deviation divided by the square root of n. So, ginagamit natin yung z-test kapag yung n natin is greater than or equal siya sa 30. Again, the z-test or yung test statistic na gagamitin natin kapag ang n natin is greater than or equal to 30 ay z-test ang gagamitin natin. Whether the population variance is known or unknown. So, sample mean or this bar x is equal to the sample mean and then the other is the population mean. So these are the symbol in our formula. So the standard deviation and n is the sample size. So para mas lalo nating maintindihan, let me give you an example. So example number 1. The leader of the Association of Jeepney Drivers claimed that the average daily take-home pay of all jeepney drivers in Pasay City is 400 peso. A random sample of 100 jeepney drivers in Pasay City was interviewed, and the average daily take-home of these drivers is found to be 425 peso. Use a 0.05 level of significance to find out if the average daily take-home pay of all jeepney drivers in Pasay City is different from 400 peso. So the assumption population variance is 8,464 peso. So first is we need to understand the problem. So kung nakikita natin marami tayong given dito. So, para mas hindi tayo malito, so we can write the given that we have in our problem. So, first is the mean and the sample mean. So, ang ating sample mean is 425 kasi if you can see, a random sample of 100 jeepney drivers in Pasay City was interviewed and the average daily take-home of this driver is found to be 425. So, therefore, the sample mean is 425 dahil galing siya sa random sample natin. Next is the mean, which is 400 dahil ito na yung all jeepney drivers in Pasay City. Ayan, all jeepney drivers. And then, the standard deviation, since ang given natin dito is population variance. Ayan. So, variance, wala tayong standard deviation. So, to get the standard deviation, we need to get the square root of the variance. So, that's why, in-square root natin tong 8,464 peso and the square root of this is 92 pesos. So, therefore, the standard deviation is 92 peso. So, again, kapag ang given natin is variance, we need to transform it into a standard deviation. So, therefore, we will square root the variance. Next natin is yung n natin, which is the random sample. So, yung random sample natin is 100. And then, the level of significance is 0.05 or it is a 5%. So, bago tayo tumungo dun sa ating next step, we need to identify this alpha or level of significance kung ito ba ay for two-tailed or one-tailed. So, paano ba natin ma-identify kung etong alpha natin dito is one-tailed siya or two-tailed? Kasi diba sa ating t-distribution, meron tayong 0.05 for one-tail and meron din tayong 0.05 for two-tailed. So, we need to get kung anong tail ito para tama din yung ating solution. So, to get the tailed, kung one-tailed or two-tailed to, we need to get the hypothesis or the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. So the null hypothesis is equal to 400 or the mean is equal to 400 and the alternative hypothesis is not equal to 400. So if you can see sa problem natin, wala naman siyang less than, greater than, or more than, or less than. So therefore, the symbol is not equal sa alternative hypothesis. If the symbol in alternative hypothesis is not equal, so pag not equal, ang ating tail dito ay yung two-tailed. So hindi natin alam kung dun siya sa negative or sa positive siya magfo-fall. So therefore, sa two-tailed to. That's why ang gagamitin natin is two-tailed. Next is to know kung anong test statistic ang gagamitin natin. So we will look sa ating n. So yung n natin is equal to 100. So ang sabi natin kanina, we will use the z-test or z-table if n is greater than or equal to 30. Since this is 100 and it is greater than sa 30, so ang gagamitin natin ay z-test. So now, let's move to our two-tailed. Since two-tailed tong ating alpha, kailangan kunin natin yung one-tail niya. So, to get the one-tail of our alpha, we need to divide this by 2. So, therefore, alpha over 2 is equal to 0.05 over 2. Then, we will divide the 0.05 sa 2 and that is 0.025. So, etong nakuha natin is the area of the rejection of the normal curve. So, area pa lang siya ng ating rejection of the normal curve. So, kung makikita natin sa ating normal curve, so let's say this is the 0.025. Yan. So, eto yung ating 0.025. And this is also 0.025. So, this is 0.025. So, area siya. So, we need to find the critical value of this. So, to find the critical value of this part, so, kailangan nating hanapin yung area nito. So, paano natin mahahanap yung area nito? So, if you remember, this whole curve is equal to 1. So, kung yung half lang yung hahanapin natin, then this is equal to 0.5. And then, meron na tayong 0.025, so we need to subtract it. Kasi hindi na siya kasama sa ating area dahil etong part lang yung kukunin nating area. Ayan. So, ang gagawin lang natin is magsasubtract. So, therefore, 0.05 minus 0.025 is equal to 0.475. So, ngayon, anong gagawin natin dito sa 0.475 natin? So, eto ay titignan natin sa ating table. Since z-statistic or z-test ang ginamit natin, dun tayo titingin sa z-table natin, which is the areas under the normal curve para makuha natin yung critical value, yung ating value dito. So now, let's look to our z-table. So this is our z-table. Paano ba natin hahanapin yung 0.475 natin sa ating table? So parang mahirap hanapin lalo na ang daming numbers sa ating table. So para mas madalian kayong maghanap sa ating table, kung makikita natin dito sa second row or second column natin, this is the second column. Ayan. So dito sa second column natin, so makikita natin dito yung first decimal place natin, which is yung tenths natin is 0 and then increasing order siya. So 0, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So kung makikita nyo yung ating area is 0.475. So, syempre, hahanapin agad natin yung 4. So, this is 0.4. Ito yung mga 0.4 natin. Ayan, start dito sa 1.3. Then, since nahanap na natin yung first decimal, which is yung tens natin na 4, next naman natin titignan is 7. So, since ito ay hindi na 7, so, ayan. So, hindi na to 7, 0 yan. So, ang hahanapin natin is 7. So, ito ay 7. Ito rin ay 7. So, dito sa dalawang to ay yung kasunod niya or the hundreds place natin is 7. So, titignan natin yung third digit. So, dito sa 2 natin is 7 na yung third digit or third decimal place natin. So, wala na dito sa part na to yung ating area. So, nandito na natin titignan sa 1.9. So, titignan natin nasan yung 0.475. So, eto yung 4.75 natin. So, hindi lang tayo horizontal titingin dahil meron pa tayong number sa ating itaas. So, para makuha natin yung third digit ng ating critical value, kailangan makita din natin yung third digit dito. So, therefore, the critical value, so dito siya nag-intersect. So, ang critical value natin ay 1.9, then yung third digit ay 6. So, therefore, the Z critical value is equal to positive and negative 1.96. Bakit siya positive or negative? Dahil two-tailed po tayo. So, yung isa, negative 1.96, and then yung isa naman natin ay positive 1.96. Since we are done in finding the critical value, so pwede na natin siyang ilagay sa ating normal curve. So, this is negative 1.96, and this is positive 1.96. So, nandito yung ating rejection. So, ngayon, titignan natin if the problem or yung given problem natin magpo-fall ba yung sa rejection or hindi. So, ngayon, we need to find the test value. So, meron na tayong critical value. Ngayon, kailangan na natin i-test if magpo-fall ba siya sa critical, sa rejection region natin. So, now we will compute the test value. And to compute the test value, gagamitin natin yung z-test natin. So, which is z is equal to the sample mean minus mean over the standard deviation divided by square root of n. So, para magawa natin to, of course, we need the given. So, ito yung given natin kanina. And then, what are we going to do is to substitute the given to the formula. So, yung sample mean natin is 425 peso minus yung mean natin ay 400. Yung standard deviation natin is 92. And then, yung n natin ay 100. So, ganyan na yung kalalabasan niya. Then, you can simplify. 425 minus 400 is equal to 25. Then, square root of 100 is 10. So, therefore, 25 over 92 divided by 10 tayo ngayon. Then, isosolve natin yung ating denominator, which is 92 divided by 10. So, 92 divided by 10 is equal to 9.2. Then, after that is, we will divide in 25 divided by 9.2 is equal to positive 2.72. So, ngayon, eto na yung ating test value. So, this is the normal curve that we have, and then this is the critical value, and then, kailangan lang natin ilagay yung ating test value sa ating normal curve. So, yung test value natin is positive. So, nandito siya sa part na to dahil ito yung positive natin. And then, the positive 2.72 is nandito. So, let's say nandito yung ating 2.72. So, since nandito sa ating rejection region yung ating test value, then the null hypothesis is rejected. Yan. So, since the computed test statistic, which is z is equal to 2.72, which is, it falls within the rejection region, we reject the null hypothesis. So, yung conclusion nyo is, there is a significant difference. So, this is difference. Significant difference between the sample mean and the population mean. Thus, the average daily take-home pay of jeepney drivers is not equal to 400. So, now let me give you another example. So, sa another example natin, example number 2. The problem is, suppose an insurance company will begin an extensive advertising campaign to sell insurance if it thinks that the average amount carried by per family is less than 10,000 peso. A random sample of 50 families in the area has an average of 9,600 with a standard deviation of 1,000 peso. On the base of the sample evidence, should the company begin the advertising campaign at 0.05 level of significance? So now, we have read the problem. So first thing to do is to write the given that we have. So the mean or the sample mean is 9,600. The mean is 10,000 peso. The standard deviation is 1,000 peso. So, hindi na natin kailangan mag-square root of 1,000 dahil ang given na natin ay mismong standard deviation na. So, not unlike dun sa ating previous example, ang given dun ay variance. So, that's why we need to get the standard deviation. But then, since ang ating given dito ay standard deviation na, wala na tayong kukumputin. So, therefore, the standard deviation is 1,000 peso. Next is yung N natin is 50 because random sample of 50 families. And then the alpha or the level of significance is 0.05. So, next is to find if this alpha is for one-tailed or two-tailed. So, we need to get the null and alternative hypothesis. So, yung null hypothesis natin is equal siya sa ating 10,000. And then yung alternative hypothesis natin, since we have the keyword less than, then the alternative is mean is less than 10,000. Since this is less than, automatic, this is one-tailed. So, the alpha is one-tailed. So, pag one-tailed na yung alpha natin, no need to compute or no need to divide the alpha by 2. Next is to identify kung ano yung test statistic na gagamitin natin. So, since yung N natin ay 50, which is greater than sa ating 30, ang gagamitin nating test statistic is z-test. So, let's move. So, we are going to find the area of one-tail. So, since this is one-tailed, this is the rejection of the normal curve. So, sa ating normal curve, eto na yung ating rejection, which is 0.05. So, this part is 0.05. Paano nyo malalaman if dito nyo siya ilalagay or dito sa part ng positive? So, kung natatandaan nyo, yung alternative hypothesis natin, which is H sub A. So, H sub A natin is equal to mean is less than sa 10,000. So, if you remember, pag less than yung ating symbol sa alternative hypothesis, sa negative siya or sa left side of the curve natin makikita yung ating test value. So, next is to get the area of this part. So, yung area natin sa non-rejection area. So, which is dito sa part na to. So, kailangan natin hanapin yung area niya. So, therefore, 0.5 minus 0.05 is equal to 0.45. Or pwede natin gawin ay 0.450. So, we are going to look to the z-table or the areas under the normal curve to get the critical value. Bakit ba tayo sa z-table titingin? Dahil yung n natin ay greater than 30, z-test and z-table ang gagamitin natin. So, now, let's look on the z-table. So, ang ating area is 0.450. So, again, yung 0.450 natin ay andito, 0.4, then 0.45. So, since ang third digit natin ay 0, and this is 5, so wala na dito sa part na to. So, nandito yung ating hinahanap. So, 0.45, 0.450. So, eto yung ating area na meron tayo ngayon. 0.450, and then the critical value is 1.6, and the third digit is 5. So that is 1.65. Since less than yung nasa ating alternative hypothesis, the critical value is negative 1.65. And then, sa ating normal curve, nasa left side siya. So, ang ating critical value is negative 1.65. So, now we have the critical value. Next is we need to get the test value. So, to compute the test value, we will use the z-test, which is sample mean minus mean divided by the standard deviation over square root of n. So, the given is 9,600, which is yung sample mean natin, minus natin sa 10,000 over the standard deviation, which is 1,000, and then divided by square root of n, which is 50. Then, simplify natin. So, 9,600 minus 10,000 is equal to negative 400. And then, square root of 50 natin ay 7.07. So, yung sagot po natin dito ay madaming decimal, but you can round off up to 2 decimal places. So, negative 400 over 1,000 divided by 7.07. So, ang gagawin natin is to solve this denominator, which is 1,000 divided by 7.07 is equal to 141.44. So, always round it off up to 2 decimal places. So, next is negative 400 divided by 141.44 is equal to negative 2.83. So, ngayon, kailangan na natin siya i-test sa ating normal curve. So, yung ating negative 2.83, since nandito yung negative natin, and then, this is negative 1.65. Nandito yung ating negative 2.83. So, therefore, since nasa rejection area siya, ang ating decision is reject. So, since the computed test statistic is equal to negative 2.83, which falls within the rejection region, we will reject the null hypothesis. And to conclude, so there is a significant difference, meron siyang difference between the sample mean and the population mean. Thus, the average amount carried per family is less than 10,000. So, yung sample mean natin tsaka population mean natin is magkaiba, so hindi natin pwedeng gamitin yung sample mean to compare into the population mean. So now, let's have a last example. Example 3. The director of manufacturing at a clothing factory needs to determine whether a new machine is producing a particular type of cloth according to the manufacturer's specification, which indicate that the cloth should have a mean breaking strength of 70 pounds and a standard deviation of 3.5 pounds. A sample of 49 pieces of clothes reveal a sample mean breaking strength of 69.1 pounds. Is there evidence that the machine is not meeting the manufacturer's specification for the average breaking strength? So use a 0.05 level of significance. So first is to identify the given that we have on the problem. So yung sample mean natin is 69.1. The mean is 70. The standard deviation is 3.5. So again, so the sample mean is 69.1. The mean is 70 pounds. The standard deviation is 3.5 pounds. So ito yung ating standard deviation. Yung n natin is 49. And then the level of significance is 0.05. So identify if the level of significance is for one-tailed or two-tailed. Dahil pag two-tailed po yan, we need to get the one-tailed. So for two-tailed, for alpha or level of significance, let's get the null and alternative hypothesis. So the null hypothesis is equal to 70 and the alternative hypothesis is not equal to 70. Since ang ating symbol sa ating alternative hypothesis is not equal, so this is yung alpha natin or level of significance is two-tailed. Since this is two-tailed, we need to get the one-tailed. Next is yung n natin. Titignan natin if ang gagamitin ba natin is z-test or yung t-test natin. So since it is greater than 30, which is n, yung 49 natin, ang gagamitin natin ay z-test. So now let's move on solving the one-tailed. So ang gagawin lang natin is di-divide lang natin siya by 2. So alpha over 2 is equal to 0.05 over 2 and this is equal to 0.025. So ito lang yung area ng rejection natin. So again, so ito yung rejection natin. So ito lang yung area ng 0.025. So we need to get the area of this part. Ayan, sa part na to. Then, to get the area of this part, we need to subtract 0.025 sa ating 0.5. So, 0.5 minus 0.025 is equal to 0.475. So, most commonly, ang ginagamit kasing level of significance is either 0.05 or 0.01, which is 5% or 1%. So, here, since we have the area which is 0.475, so we will look the areas under the normal curve or the z-table. So, ang ating area is 0.475. So, nandito yon. So, nakuha na din natin siya kanina. So, yung 0.475 natin is 1.96. So, therefore, the critical value, since this is two-tailed, yung two-tailed natin kanina, which is dahil yung alternative natin is not equal, so ang critical value natin is equal sa positive or negative 1.96. So, let's say nandito yung ating negative 1.96. So, negative 1.96 and this is the positive 1.96. And then, the rejection region is nandito. So, kapag nag-fall dito yung test value natin, i-reject natin. Pero pag wala dito yung ating test value, i-accept natin yung null hypothesis. So, now, let's get the test value. Compute the test value. So we will use the z-test and substitute the given that we have sa ating formula. So yung sample mean natin is 69.1 minus mean natin which is 70, and the standard deviation is 3.5 and the n is 49. So 69.1 minus 70 is equal to negative 0.9 over 3.5 divided by square root of 49, which is square root of 49 is 7. Kaya naging 7 to. Then solve natin yung 3.5 divided by 7. So 3.5 divided by 7 is equal to 0.5. Then let's proceed. Negative 0.9 divided by 0.5 is equal to negative 1.8. So the test value is negative 1.8. So ito yung ating normal curve, and the critical value is negative and positive 1.96. So the test value is negative 1.8. Since negative siya, nandito siya sa part na to. And then, nasan ba yung ating negative 1.8? So, since this is negative 1.96, let's say nandito yung ating negative 1.8. So, negative 1.8 or negative 1.80. Since wala siya dito sa part ng ating rejection region, ang ating null hypothesis is accepted. Ayan. Since the computed test statistic or the z is equal to negative 1.8, which do not fall within the rejection region, so sa ating negative 1.96, we accept the null hypothesis. So to conclude, so iba pa yung conclusion natin, there is no significant difference. So walang pagkakaiba yung sample mean natin at population mean natin. So ibig sabihin nito, pwede nating gamitin yung sample mean para makuha din natin yung population mean dahil wala naman silang pagkakaiba. So there is no difference that the machine is not meeting the manufacturer's specification for the average braking strength of 70 pounds. So therefore, yung null hypothesis natin is accepted. So again, to summary this lesson, whether the variance is given or not, kung variance man ang meron sa problem or standard deviation, pero ang ating n is greater than or equal siya sa 30, ang gagamitin natin is z-test and the z-table. So next is we will learn about the hypothesis testing when the mean variance is known or unknown pero yung n natin is less than 30. So see for the next video.